What's good, YouTube? My name is James, and this is my poker blog.
Aces cracked.
Three-way all in. Tens, king, aces.
Where you did the flop though?
Where did the flop?
Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I'll be going over a online home game that I played in. So these are small stakes cash games that my NYC City Poker Group hosts, and we run these games about 3 or 4 times a week. Right now, I'm playing in them pretty actively because of the COVID pandemic, as our live meetup games are on pause. Before I begin, I just want to quickly announce that, unfortunately, the correct answer for last video's mystery hand was not guessed. However, some of you were very close with your guess of pocket 10s and pocket 8s. The correct answer was pocket 9s, so you're almost there, but don't worry, you will get another chance in this video. As always, the rules for the mystery hand will be in the description below, and make sure you are subscribed. That's it for the semantics. Let's get to the game.
On to the online home game, where we chip up a little bit early on before looking down at ace-2 of diamonds on the button. There's 2 limpers to us, and we can definitely raise our hand here, but I decide to just limp call instead because it's a great hand to play multi-way, and this pot is definitely going multi-way. So we just limp behind. The small blind limps, and then the big blind now bumps it up to 160. One of the other limpers calls, and onto us. Here we can just call because we're getting a great price to see the flop, plus we're also in position. Small blind calls as well, and we go 4 ways to a flop of Jack 3 Ace Rainbow. The initial raiser checks, and then the middle position player decides to throw out a small bet of 120 into 660. So with top pair here, this is an easy defend for us, so we make the call. The other 2 players fold, and we get to the turn, which is a 7 of clubs, and the middle position player bets out small once again for 180. So at this point, we can kind of narrow his range down to mostly jacks, maybe some weaker pairs like pocket 6s or pocket 5s. So our hand's in great shape against that range, so we proceed with a call. And the river's a queen of diamonds, and now our opponent checks. So after he bets small on the flop and turn, and then checks the river, I think his range is definitely capped to what we were talking about earlier, which is essentially him holding some sort of jack or a weak pocket pair. So I think if we throw out a bet here, he's going to be scared of the ace and probably fold all of those jacks and weaker pairs. And I think if we do bet and get called, the only hands that are calling us are an ace. And because our kicker's a 2, we're going to lose to all of those hands. So we decide to just check it back, take the showdown, and our opponent flips up king jack for 3rd pair, and we take this pot down. A few hands later, we flop a set with pocket 2s, and it ends up being a 3-way pot where we end up winning against 2 pair. So we win a big pot there and end up with the chip stack that you see here. Unfortunately, my screen recording software got screwed up, so I wasn't able to capture that hand for you guys. Alright, for the next hand, we look down to see 7-6 of clubs in the hijack position. We get 3 limps to us, and similar to before, this hand plays great multi-way, so we decide to just limp call. It's kind of weak, but if we do raise here, we're only sitting with 7 high, and our opponents could have better draws which dominate us, so we just proceed with the call. A couple other players call, and we go 6 ways to the flop, which is 2 king jack with 2 clubs. One of the early position limpers makes a bet of 60, and a middle position player calls. Onto us, we do have a really good hand to make a raise with, having the 7 high flush draw. However, the pot is still multi-way, and the initial better has a very small stack. So if we raise and get called, we're likely to be playing for stacks against this player here. So I think a call makes sense considering we're also getting a great price. So we just make the call with our flush draw. And now the turn's a 7 of spades, so we pick up a pair. The early position player bets 40, and the middle position player calls. So this is a small bet. We're getting a great price to draw to our flush. Also, we have a pair of 7s, which is probably good considering how small the bet is. So let's not screw this up and just make the call. And the river's a 10 of clubs, so we actually get there with the flush, which is awesome. The player bets 40 again, the middle position calls, and now onto us. We definitely have to raise for value. As for sizing, I don't think we can go too big here because the bet is very small and this player just called. So sitting here with the flush, we want to try to get called by some sort of kings and maybe two pairs like king jack or king 7. So I think if we bump it up to about 180, we should get called by most of those hands. The initial better folds and the middle position player makes the call, and he flashes queen 9 for the rivered straight, so we definitely could have squeezed some more value out of him with a bigger raise, but we were really putting him on mostly kings and some two pairs, so we went with the smaller sizing, unfortunately. For our third hand, this is going to be the mystery hand of the video, so try to guess my 2 cards. Good luck. It folds to the cutoff, who makes it 1 to go. This player here is a buddy of mine and a very competent player, so we like to play tricky against him sometimes. Here on the button, we should probably be 3-betting versus his wide opening range on the cutoff. However, this time we decide to just go with a call. The blinds get out of the way, and we go to a flop of Jack 3-5 with 2 diamonds. Our buddy bets 95, and this is a standard C-bet, so we are just going to float here and defend with a wide variety of holdings. The turn is a 5 of diamonds, so the flush gets there and it also pairs the board, and now our friend decides to size up to 3. So with this larger sizing, he's basically saying he has a flush or some sort of jack with a diamond, like ace jack with the ace of diamonds or king jack. So against this range, we're just going to call, and I can't tell you why because you're guessing my hand. We get to the river, which is a 7 of hearts, essentially a brick, and now our buddy checks. After betting 2 streets and then checking the river, his range is probably pretty weak, so here we decide to make a big bet that looks kind of bluffy, so we size up to 765, and our buddy snap folds while making fun of us in the voice chat. On to the next hand, where we look down at the glorious pocket aces. We get a limper to us, and we're going to bump it up here and raise it to 110. We're trying to hopefully isolate this short stack here and get him to stack off against us. However, he doesn't comply, and instead the small blind calls and the initial limper calls. So we go to a flop of 10-2 king, 2 hearts. This is a pretty wet flop with lots of pairs of kings and 10s out there. Also, there are flush and straight draws available, such as queen jack, queen 9, and all the hearts. So we definitely want to size up for value. When it checks to us, we make it 215. We get 1 fold, and the middle position player calls us. Onto the turn, which is a 4 of hearts. This isn't a great card because the flush gets there, so I think this is a good spot to pot control. So when our opponent checks to us, we just check it back. And we're just hoping for no more hearts, please, no more red cards. Why, bro? However, we get some good news when our opponent checks to us. Now on to us. Do we bet here? I think if we bet, even if it's a small amount, any king is going to fold since there's 4 hearts on the board. So I think it's a little too thin if we make a value bet. So we decide to just check and take the showdown with our pocket aces, hoping the opponent has a king, which we beat. And they do have a king, but they also have a 10 for 2 pair. So our hand's going to lose to that. And we watch our aces go up in flames. Rip. For our last hand, we have a limp to us before looking down at ace-king in the hijack. So we're going to bump it up to 110 and get called by the cutoff and the initial limper. 3 ways to the flop, which comes ace-7 ace with 2 hearts. So we flop trips here with the top kicker. I'd say it's a pretty decent hand, but we do have the board really locked up, so we should probably just check here as there aren't many strong hands our opponents can have on a board with 2 aces. Action checks through on the flop. The turn is another ace, so yeah, we have quads now. Probably just have to check and hope that our opponent has some sort of pocket pair for a full house, in which case they will definitely bet for us. So let's go with that. The player behind us doesn't let us down and throws out a bet of 120. So at this point, I don't think we should be raising and scaring him off the hand just yet, so we just make the call. The river is a jack of hearts, so even though the flush gets there, with the 3 aces on the board, I don't think any flushes are going to look to stack off. Regardless, we definitely have to go for the check raise and hope that they have a full house so we can raise them. We check. Yeah, I was completely wrong because our opponent checks it back. We have to show the entire table quad aces after winning exactly $0 on the river, and yeah, sad life. An orbit later, we decided to call it a night, and we ended up playing for a little under 4 hours. We were in for 20 and out for 67.56, which equates to about 6 Chipotle bowls, or realistically 63 big blinds per hour. So a decent result, although we weren't in too many crazy hands this session.
That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.